kind of an ego boost. That's a lie. It was an ego boost. Weirdest thing is taking a leak in Canada and some guy standing next to you and he's like, "Hey, you're the guy from flipping Boston." You're like, "Yeah, keep your eyes on the prize there, buddy." You know what I mean?
Welcome back to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. Jason Bale and Hard Money Bankers co-host Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse coming to you guys live in the Northeast today. Weather's not great, but that's all right. We're still banging out this show. Thanks for everybody that is tuning in. If this is your first time viewing, watching, listening, you're gonna love this show. We got a great guest. We bring great guests from all over the country that are doing real estate deals today. Not gurus, actual real estate investors that are doing deals. If you're a return viewer, follower, listener, viewer, thanks again for all your support. Certainly couldn't do without you. You know, we've been going strong with this podcast for, 5+ years at this point. And we've had the opportunity and the pleasure to bring on some really great real estate operators all over the place. So definitely looking forward to this interview today, Ian.
Yeah, no, 5 years, and I feel like every time I go to load up and send out the StreamYard link, it feels like my first time. I'm like nervous to send it out, but it's all good, guys. Listen, we're not worried about the likes or the subscribes. The best compliment we can give our guests who are real people just like us is to give them a share. And today you guys are going to find out, and I didn't even know this as we're bringing our guest on. He's also a retired fireman. Sounds like he left early like I did, so I'm super excited about today's guest. So if you guys get any value out of this show, please give it a share. And enough about us, and let's bring in Dave Seymour. What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm well, man. I'm well. Thanks for having me on, guys. Good stuff. I like the intro. Nice and low key, baby. No big, no dollars flying around and trumpets playing. I like it. Nice.
It's quick. It's intense. It gets to the point, and bang, 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 bang. Dave, so why don't you just do, start off maybe just a quick background. I know you were in the fire department for 16 years. You also had an A&E television series called Flipping Boston that some of these folks might remember. I certainly do. Let's just do a little kind of background. Start with that.
Yeah, no, first of all, it's always interesting to do this. So I'd probably bang out 2 or 3 of these podcasts, a month maybe, right? Bring some value to the marketplace. And for me, I've always tried to focus on the fact of who's listening to guys like us, right? So we're all operators. We're all out there doing a little bit of business, banging the bushes, looking for margin, either for ourselves in our own businesses or for our investors, whatever the case may be. And I always think to myself, what do they want to hear, right? Let's bring them value. I don't know about anybody else, but, I don't want to be that guy that his favorite subject is him. You know what I'm saying? I don't talk about much, but all I talk about is me. And yet at the same time, I've learned through multiple podcasts of my years as and still am obviously an investor, but also in the education space as a trainer, is that there's a lot of value in a story. Can you tell a good story? Can you highlight, the moments of, inception where things changed? What was it that sent somebody in one direction or another? Because I think a lot of people listen to these types of podcasts, looking for alternatives to what they're already got going on in their life, whether it's a 9-to-5 and an employee or business owner, or or even somebody who's already in the game. So, I hope we give them their money's worth. Let's put it that way. So yes, I am. I do have a little bit of a story. My accent is a little bizarre. It's got the Boston twang to it today, just like Ian got that Philly twang. I got the Boston twang, but I wasn't born into baseball and popcorn and all of that stuff. I was born in London. I grew up in England. I emigrated when I was like 20 years old. Came to the States, lived in New York for a while. So from like 20 to 23, I'm just bopping around. What's interesting is, to be on this podcast today with gentlemen like you, with people listening to us. I grew up in the English equivalent of the projects, man. It was called the housing estate. And we didn't have money. There wasn't massive amounts of education, strong blue collar background. my old man was a heating and air conditioning guy. My mom worked in a bank as a secretary. And I didn't have any entrepreneurial skills. And with that came no financial skills, right? I was a financial illiterate. We talk often at the entrepreneurial level about the lack of education, there is around money, right? Credit, debt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I bought all of that blue collar education with me and, paid a price for that. It's funny. My first year in this country, I get 10 W-2s at the end of the year. And I said to my first wife, I'm like, what's this W-2 thing? Is it like a certificate of appreciation or something? What is this thing? She looked at me, she went, no, it means you're unemployable, you asshole. You know what I mean? It was like, I was never content working for somebody else. Anyway, fast forward, long story short, I move up to the New England area and a buddy of mine says to me, he says, Dave, you should try getting one of those good government jobs. I'm like, he goes, police, firefighter, work in the post office. I was never going to be a teacher. I hated school. So, I took the civil service exams here in Massachusetts, and it was tough, man. I mean, there was certain privileges that were given to other people, and, we're fighting against that, trying to get this job. Anyway, I get the job. I hold the signs for the local mayor, and I get sworn into the fire department. Become a naturalized citizen of this country. Very proud to say that. I carry an American passport. I don't crap on my English heritage, but I'll celebrate with the rest of us on 4th of July, brother. You know what I mean? It's like there's a lot of pride in that, dude. It is what it is. I have pride in that. Same pride that I have for my English heritage. It's like this country. I'm going to go off on a little political rant. This country brings massive opportunities that I would never have had in the English culture that I grew up in, right? I don't have a collegiate degree. I'm not from Yale. I'm not from jail. I'm just a hardworking dude who wanted more out of life and was discontent with the 9 to 5. And anyway, I get into the fire department and things are good, man. I mean, I loved it. And you'll testify to this, Ian. Like, there's nothing more powerful than that brotherhood, bro. I love chaos. I'm not going to deny it. I love chaos. I love emergencies. When everybody else is running out, I love running in. I like the wackos, the weirdos, the flippers and the floppers. I like the Looney Tunes. I like the ethnic groups. I want, I don't care whether they're Somalis, Hispanics, Asians, whiteies. It doesn't matter. Like, I love chaos. Yeah. What I didn't love was the financial benefits of that chaos.
That's right.
Because I was a financial illiterate, right? I find myself in like $70,000 in credit card debt, unsecured, because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I go through the crash of 2005. I'm losing my house. It's upside down to the point of probably 50% of its true value. The American dream is becoming an American nightmare. I'm working construction on my days off, as most firefighters do, right? We've always got a side gig. Working retail security nights and weekends, stop and shop police. It was like, it's a joke. It was nuts. Yeah. But it drove me to a point of decision. Losing my home, I'm screaming and shouting at my God. I'm sitting in my F-250 pickup. I'm screaming and shouting at my God. And I'm like, dude, I've done everything my father told me to do. I don't lie, cheat, or steal. I work my ass off. I'm up to about 120 hours a week now between 3 jobs, fire department, construction, and the other stuff. I'm like, what's going on? Don't rumble with God, because he's always going to win. And I'm asking for help. I hear nothing. And I'm like, okay, I got to go home and tell my wife and my kids we got to leave the house because I'm losing it. And as I turn the ignition on in my truck, laugh your ass off. Commercial comes on the radio. Teach me foreclosure. A free 1.5 hour seminar, straight up, free 1.5 hour seminar coming to your neck of the woods. And I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to learn how to do real estate, no money down. And I'd seen it, man. I'd seen it when I'm digging ditches in Boston because I got to make a buck. And these investor types were coming to these properties. Their clothes were nicer. They're smiling. Their coffees were hot and warm. Everything was good about them. I'm like, I remember those guys. And that's where it started. and I started down the education path and invested $27,000 in my education on my wife's credit cards because I knew that what I was doing wouldn't work anymore. And so it started. At single families, I became a loss mitigation investor. We did a ton of short sale work, loan modification. I got to see the true scumbags in the industry as well as the true heroes. I've lived a philosophy from that day to this that's pretty much along the lines of it's okay to do good works and make great money. And if I put people first and profit second, then I tend to garner some success. So anyway, kind of long-winded, fellas. I apologize, but that's kind of the background of how it all started.
That's pretty much what I chirp in Jason's ear every day. I'm like, I love the chaos. I love the kitchen table. I miss it. But in the same sense, a lot of people are financially illiterate. Jason and I talk every day. That's literally how this podcast got started. So it's really interesting that you went down the traditional seminar route. And I mean, for our listeners who are just getting started or even people that are seasoned in the industry, we all got to go back and remember that first day. My first day was a guy at work was like, hey, you want to go learn about real estate? I'm like, yeah, sure. We left. I got off the medic that day, went to this seminar, and it was a bait and switch. The lady was like, yeah, we're here to talk about real estate, but real quick, let me tell you how you can sell electric in this Ponzi scheme, multi-level market. I was like, I'm done. But then I asked the guy, we went out and learned about real estate. And I know Jason, didn't you take the more traditional route? But like, talk to us about like, if you didn't go to that seminar, like, even though it's like the big seminar, like what did you take away from that? Like those big seminars, do they actually give you the info you need? Or were you so primed that you're like, I'm going to go jump and just do, doesn't matter what they say, I'm going to do something. This is the will that I need. I need the acceptance from these people to go do this. It's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. Some people, have they have the gift or the time, if you will, to, research and, oversee and look and say, okay, this is where I want to go. Right. I wasn't that guy. I was beaten into submission, brother. I was beaten into submission. The price of financial illiteracy isn't just money. It's relationships, right? It's marriages. It's fatherhood. I'm a father of 3 boys, 30, 15, and 13. If I can't be present for my boys because I'm always worried about fill in the blank, what chance do I have, right? I can just perpetuate ignorance. So I'm driven into that environment. And like I said, I'm a man of faith. I'm a believer. And is whether you take that as that silliness, that's a coincidence. God is or he isn't, bro. He either is or he isn't. And in my life, he is. And that was the day he tapped me on the shoulder. So when I get to that arena, this was 2000 and we'll say 8, somewhere around there. And there were a lot of people in that room, man. There was like 300 people in this seminar. And this dude gets up there and he starts talking. And he was contrarian, bro. He was contrarian. He was bucking against everything that I believe to be true. Your primary residence is your number one investment. Put money in a 401k. All of the things that are sold. Just follow the green line for Schwab. You'll be fine. Just do what they tell you to do. Fidelity will never let you down, right? Blah, 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 freaking blah. So when I start hearing contrarian information to that, I want to defend what I've done up until that point. And then came the knockout punch. And I'll use the same one for anybody who hears us today. If the results that you have right now are not what you believe you want, you should have, you could achieve, what is it that you've been doing? Because if what it is that you've been doing isn't giving you what you want, need, believe is right, whatever, fill in the blank again, then maybe, David, they said to me, you might want to start doing things differently. And that was a moment of clarity for me, an incipient moment where I looked at my wife and I said, it's Sunday. We're going to spend $27,000 we don't have. And she said, what do you think? I said, I know one thing, Mary Beth, I can't keep doing this. I said, it's just going to destroy everything that we have. And she said to me, she said, "Go get him, killer." She said, "I'm proud of you, baby, and I love you, and I support you." And that was again one of the most important moments of my life, was the fact that I didn't meet resistance at those moments of moving forward from the people that loved me. You know, it was unconditional support. And I say jokingly, my wife is the rock I get to stand on so I can look cool today. Your question, Ian, is did they deliver on what they promised? You know, I am where I am today. So whether the nuts and bolts and the boxes being ticked along the way from the real estate gurus, no, they didn't tick the boxes. I went with the Whitney organization. I paid for 5 classes, attended 3. Actually was a keynote speaker with Russ Whitney a few years later. I went up to him and I'm like, because we got the TV show now and I'm getting some recognition. And obviously he's Russ Whitney, he was the OG of the seminar industry. And we're backstage and I'm like, "Hey, Russ, I'm Dave." I said, I do the TV show, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I was a Russ Whitney student, man. I just wanted to let you know that. He goes, "Oh, really? That's good. Yeah." I go, "Yeah, I paid for 5 classes. I only took 3. Any chance of a refund?" He looks at me like, "Who's this clown?" But what I did do that day was I bought accountability. And I think that's a dirty word, right? I don't know where you guys feel, but there's a society that one could say is living the entitled life, right? Gimme without putting the grind in. So for me, I was prepared to grind. So that 300 whittled down to maybe 30 or 40 that invested in themselves. And like the brotherhood, and I'm like, "Yeah, let's go. LFG, let's go. We're all gonna do this thing. It's gonna be awesome." And I'm running like a wackadoo. I'm like, "This is gonna be great. Come on, let's go. Where did everybody go? They all fell off." And I'm like, "Not me. I ain't giving up no matter what. I never lay down. I never retreat. I never surrender. Get up and go for it." So that was the implementation is the key to salvation.
Well, like what Ian said earlier related to like, well, did the program work? Right. And it's like, well, define what worked. Like you said, I'm here today. Yeah. And I think everybody's takeaway is going to be different from that same thing.
Yeah.
And I think, some of it needs accountability. I mean, a lot of it's just a mental shift, right? Like,
sure.
I went, mid 2000s when I got into real estate, 2004, 2005, before we started our hard money lending company, we went to those events as well. And, to this day, I still even have some of the three ring binders because it just, it holds me. I'll never look at those damn things again. I mean, but anyway, like you remember, it's like, oh yeah, that's where it was. And, I didn't end up doing subject twos, or I didn't end up doing this strategy or that strategy, but we were open-minded enough to learn about all of these different things. And then you can kind of figure out what works best for everybody, right? There's a million and one ways to be a real estate investor. You got to figure out what you like. So you're on this, like, let's keep going down this path. So you're on this, like, this high, you have the rah-rah, you're like, "Yep, let's go, we're doing it." Like, how did the first deal shake out? The first deal that you bought, you're like, "Okay, now it's time I actually got to get my hands dirty and I'm leaving here and I have an emotional high, but I'm still scared. Where's the money going to come from for the deal? How do I even find the deal?"
Great questions. Yeah. Look, I, that 27 grand gave me access to people who had done deals, right? I don't care who you are. There's no such thing as a self-made millionaire, right? It's a team sport. So, the guys that were giving me a little bit of guidance from the education side were, you got to get into your market and find the people that are doing deals to get to your first deal, right? If I'm 27 grand in the hole, just in education money, plus my house is upside down, plus 120 hours a week trading time for money, how can you do a deal? Why didn't you just give up, Dave? Because I learned the power of understanding what I could bring to a market for leverage, which was my firefighter background, Ian, right? I had access to City Hall. I knew the plumbers. I knew the inspectors. I also had a construction background, so I knew how to do some stuff. So I've got some skills. Now I've also got the ability to analyze a deal set, right? Because I've learned that after repair value minus repairs minus cost of capital, blah 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 blah, maximum allowable offer, right? So I'm in the single family business. But my guys said to me, "You got to go find these guys." And in 2000 and whatever it was, 5, 6, 7, the internet wasn't turning over quite the way it is today. And Craigslist was where I went looking for real estate investors on Craigslist. And that's where I found the Greek, Pete, who ended up being on the show with me. So my first deal was kind of under the guidance of Pete Solaris, my partner on the TV show. And I was bringing some of my city connections, some of my construction connections. And here's the story. Here's the turn. And you'll love this, Jason, from the lending standpoint. Pete's testing me. He wants to see if I can do what I'm verbally saying I'm going to do, because I'm morphing into something else. I'm going from a recliner firefighter medic first in construction guy to an investor, right? That's a change. And he says to me one day, he says, "We need 30 grand to wrap up this deal that I was working on with him." And he said, "See if you can go find the money." That's what he said to me. He says, "It's a test, right? It's a test." So I went to one of the LTs in the fire department, Mikey McBride. I go, "Mikey, 30 grand. I said, I can't put you in a position on the deal. You're going to have to trust me, but 30 grand. And in 4 weeks, I'll give you back your 30 plus 5 grand. Now, I knew I could make that promise because I knew the deal was closing and I trusted Pete in the deal. So 2 weeks later, the deal closes. I call Mikey. I go, "Mikey, your 5 grand plus your 30's down at the attorney's office." And he says to me, he goes, "You're 2 weeks early." I go, "Then wait 2 weeks to go pick up your money, Mike. Whatever you want to do, brother. Your money's there." And he said, "Are you shitting me?" I go, "No. This is real." Now I'm like, this is real estate. Like, I know that, right? And he picks up his dough. And then he said the magic words. He said, "My dad is sitting on retirement. He's a retired chief. He's part of the association, blah, 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 blah." He said, "If you ever need money," he said, he said, "you call me first." He said, "And if I don't have it, my father and other guys do." And that built some confidence. So my first deal was a capital deal. Then I did a wholesale deal. I wholesaled a bank-owned property when they said you couldn't wholesale bank-owned properties during the crash. I put a 2-family or a duplex under contract for 35 grand, and I wholesaled it for 70. And I looked at that, and I remember I got this check in my hand, and I'm like, what have I done in my life up until that point, right, to earn that amount of money? How many hours? How many missed soccer matches? How many missed horrible concerts that we have to go endure with our kids? How many had I missed, right, for that amount of money? And, literally that deal took me no more than 4 hours. And I'm thinking, okay, so maybe I'm worth about, 7,500 to 10 grand an hour. Maybe, right? And once you do that shit, dude, they can't ever take it away from you. I called it my shut up check. I took that check and I showed it to everybody who said I couldn't do the business. And I showed them the check and I went, "Shut up. Look at that." Right? You can't tell me I can't do it. So that builds confidence. That builds momentum. So that's where it started.
Yeah, making your salary in one deal is always life changing. I used to flip it on the other way around. The guys are like, "Oh, you got it so easy." I'm like, you know how hard we work? I literally wrote a check to the government for our salary. Like my whole salary, my gross salary went to the goddamn government. So listen, guys, this is really hard. And you hit the nail on the head of like a lot of people bow out early. And I think this is fun to talk about the early days. A lot of people want to come on here and talk about strategy, all these other things. But this is where the rubber meets the road of guys like they just don't have the fortitude. And I mean, and Jason might not relate to this comment, but you start going down the hallway, your ears are stinging, your neck's stinging, you go, "What the hell am I doing?" But I got to put this fire out. Most people bail out, and it's the same thing with real estate. What do? They bail out with money, or they quit and go, "Oh, well, it's just a scam. There's no way this works," right? So, I mean, I think just your fortitude, I think that's what's really coming through, and that a lot of people get scared and just bow out, and they don't want to do it. They don't actually want to make change. They don't want to actually go against the grain. They don't actually want to take control of their life.
you use that hallway analogy. So I'll paint a quick picture for you. It's banking down. The heat is probably 400 degrees waist height. You're on your knees. You're going down the hall. All you see at the end of the hall is a little glow. Your heart's pounding. Your asshole's puckering. I don't care how much of a big bad mamma jamma you think you are. That's some scary ass shit right there. But you got a job to do. You got to go. You have to keep moving. And here's the thing. When you're new in the fire service and you're on the tip and you're going to work, there is a grizzly old mofo right behind you whispering in your ear. This chokes me up, dude. This chokes me up because I remember it so well. And he's pushing me in the small of my back. He's pushing and pushing and pushing. Keep going, kid. I got you. Keep going, kid. I got you. I've done this 1,000 times. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Go, 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 go. Okay. Open it up. Calm down the room. Dampen it down. Close the door. Let the steam put the room out. And you're going through these evolutions and you're fighting your internal structure that says, you got to get out of here, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
You got to run. So my point in you bringing that up in is that's mentorship, dude. You know, that's a grizzly old veteran who's seen it all, who's taking this big dude. I'm 6'3", 225. I'm lifting back then. You know, I'm a strong dude and I'm scared, man. I'm scared. So when I write that first check for my education, when I write that first investment check, when I bring in that first, $1 million in investment capital, I'm scared. And anybody who tells you that they aren't they're lying, man. They're just not telling you the truth. But under fearful conditions, I can execute because if I look to my left and my right, just like we do in a fire service, I know my back's covered. My bases are covered. My corners are covered. I'm boxed out. I'm never alone in that journey. And that is critical, man. That's critical for success. It's a non-negotiable component of getting down the end of the hallway or getting to that first million or servicing that first million customers, whatever your business plan is. So I love that analogy, bro. It does. It gets me right where it counts for sure. For sure.
Yeah, 100%. So let's fast forward a little bit. Obviously you're doing a bunch of flips. You're starting to have success. What, we could talk about the TV show. We'll talk about what you're doing today, but let's talk about where did you find the right time to leave your W-2? Did they, Did you find yourself wanting to leave, or did you find that you just didn't resonate with the guys? What was it? I know we all went through this. We've all talked about this of it's almost like an internal strife that you've created. It's like you against the world. You're like, all right, it's time for me to move on. And everybody does it a little different. So talk to us about how you left your W-2. Because I think there's a lot of people out here on our show that want to, but they're scared.
Yeah, look, you summed it up perfectly. When I wrote a check for 3 times the amount of my salary to the government, right? Year 2, I think it was. When you write a check like that, that means that your earning capacity has obviously changed dramatically, right? So then you start looking. Look, maybe I could have stayed in the fire service and done 3, 4, 5 flips a year, and just stayed on that journey. But I said to you guys before, I'm all in. I don't, I'm not a part-time anything. And financially, it was time to leave the fire service. But there was also a separation. There's probably only 3 guys left from my 16 on the department that I'm in contact with today. And those were the guys that were on my engine company, right? Those are the guys that were part of Two Jakes Construction, which was our side business. They stayed. One of them stayed and is now the chief of the department. We got on together. He's the chief and I left. And Sully says to me all the time, he says, I can't believe you did what you did. I can't believe you left. And I look at Skipper and I say to him, Danny, I can't believe you stayed, bro. I can't believe you stayed. How did you stay? How did you stay in there? But he really took to it. Lieutenant, captain, district chief, deputy chief, worked at the academy. Like he just absorbed the whole thing of the fire service. I was never a good employee, brother. Ever.
Mhm.
Ever. I had an opinion about everything, right or wrong. And you can't, opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one and they usually stink. And it was like, for me, my opinions and my bucking and it's a militaristic system. Just because the guy took the exam and has now got the bugles, that's the same guy who was ducking the fire last time I went. You know what I mean? That's the same guy who was hiding behind the engine. And now I gotta pay him respects because he says I didn't mop the floor right. Fuck off. You know what I mean? It was like I could no longer sit in that environment. I'm going to be frank with you, brother. I got regrets. I do. I have some regrets. I see my boys retiring. They're doing their own thing. I'm not retiring. I can't sit still. I'm still grinding. I'm still working. But that separation of commonality in the firehouse, and then also the financial separation, plus the fact that I was a shitty employee my whole life. Those were all of the determining factors. And now you got proof of concept, right? It's like I said, once I can show you a check for tens of thousands of dollars, I can no longer make an excuse. You can't make excuses and progress. You can only do one or the other. So I had to keep on making progress. So that was really the turning point for me. And that all happened within like a 6-month period of time. And then the TV show hit, and the exposure was different after that.
Yeah, I mean, you're scaling up your real estate investment company. I guess between your guys' strong personality types, that's probably one of the reasons why Flipping Boston picked you guys up, right? You had strong personality types. You were extroverted. You're already actively real estate investing, right? It makes a lot of sense. Like, what do you think your biggest takeaway from being on that show in general was? I mean, obviously being on having a platform like that, I'm guessing supercharged your operation, right? For good or bad, right? Like, I'm guessing there was some, like, they're not going to put somebody on there who's not doing any business, but at the same time, like, you also don't want to be in a position where it's like, oh, I got to do all these damn deals over and over because we need TV content. That's sometimes not great either. Like, what do you think some big learning lessons from being involved in that show was?
That's a great question. That's like a whistleblower episode right here. You ready? It's nuts. But I always preface it with real estate reality TV show, right? So you guys talked about ClickFunnels before we jumped into this podcast. So when I was in the seminar industry as a student, they noticed my results, and then they said to me, "Your results are above the standard. You should teach." I'm like, "I've never taught before. What are you talking about?" They said, "Well, we think you can do it. Just tell your story." That put me in the teacher bracket, and I became an educator and a trainer. And back in that period of time, Russell Brunson, founder of ClickFunnels, Gary Vaynerchuk, there was some other internet marketing real estate guys. They were like on the periphery of the people that I was around. And it was actually Russell Brunson who sent me a link to the TV show. And the email was something along the lines of, "Hey, Dave, you're a funny bastard. You got the firefighter background too. A&E Network is looking to bring this TV show back after the crash, right? Nobody was interested in real estate. It was cancer if you were a real estate investor then." Yeah. And I sent an application into that show, loaded it with profanity because I've been around enough guys to know that I needed to separate myself from the pack somehow, and that's where it started. I called the Greek and I said to him, "Look, A&E TV's coming up. They want to do a little mini something or other at one of our job sites." He thought I was just breaking his balls. And we started there. We figured we'd do 3 episodes and that was it. We had the highest rating on a Saturday morning for A&E in that genre. I think it was 1.1 million. We held that kind of rating for quite a while. So the lessons that I learned: reality TV over the long haul is a pain in the ass, because we did 3. They said your ratings are incredible. Now we want 15. I'm looking at the Greek. The Greek's looking at me, and we're like, we don't have 15 houses in the pipeline. So, we got creative in the sense that, we still did deals, but, some of it was renovation to properties that we already owned. We rehabbed one of Pete's restaurants. So it was all good. You know, it was kind of an ego boost. That's a lie. It was an ego boost. Weirdest thing is taking a leak in Canada and some guy standing next to you and he's like, "Hey, you're the guy from flipping Boston." You're like, "Yeah, keep your eyes on the prize there, buddy." You know what I mean? You know, big events in Vegas, book signings. It's all an ego stroke, dude. That's all an ego stroke. And I've tried very hard through all of those years to keep my feet on the ground, because I saw people who were coming up in the reality TV genre at the same time as me who drank their own Kool-Aid. You know, a lot of these shows, you know, I'm still in contact with some of them, but they drank their own Kool-Aid. Now, that being said, a lesson I did learn is that I didn't monetize that exposure well. I deferred and let other people carry that banner. But at the same time, I know what my skill sets are. You put me in a marketing funnel and you tell me to, you know, check the KPIs on dollars spent, and I'm going to fall asleep and stick a poker in my ear. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not my world. So, you know, I could have done better. You know, 1 minute you're sitting on Squawk Box and, you know, you're talking to Joe Keenan and Becky Quick, and the next minute you know, in some old lady's house trying to see if we can put a deal together to buy a property. Now, there's a lot of contradictions going on in that sense, but nothing lasts forever. You know, what goes up must come down. Just tried to stay grounded and faithful through the whole thing, but it was a challenge. It wasn't all peaches and cream, and it definitely wasn't financially worthwhile. I mean, I'll give you the numbers right out of the gate. First episode, we made $1,500 a piece. And the last episode we did was 30 grand. So, you know, it's not, you know, I can make more money just wholesaling a piece of paper, you know?
Well, also going back to what you said about didn't figure out ways to monetize it as well as you could. It was also 10 years ago, right? Like now, personal brand is way easier to grow with TikTok and followers and stuff like that. I mean, all those clips would have organically grown for you without having to do anything. Now that, you know, so, but I mean, I think that's a really good takeaway. And I think, you know, and, you know, I was in Russell Brunson's inner circle group when he started it early on. And one of the big takeaways that I've always gotten from him was creating a platform and having your own platform, because if you have your own network, you have your own platform, you control everything. It's hard to get that. But if you can, you know, these days, it's getting influencers, it's doing other stuff in order to be able to build your kind of personal brand where, you know, you kind of control everything. So, and I think that, you know, if like you had past experience with this and then you did it, you would have known, be like, oh, cool.
Sure.
This is our stepping stone. Let's turn this into the next thing. We don't know that stuff. It's like, hey, I just want to make a few extra bucks while I'm flipping a house and I can make more money by doing it this way. But I'm sure you've created good relationships from it though too. For sure. The doors that were open because of the show. And look, if the show wasn't there, I might not be on here. Yeah, that's you know what I'm saying. So it's got momentum in a number of different ways. What is cool about it is it doesn't lose its credibility even over time. Right. So today we're building out a brand. Super excited about it. It's called Legacy Alliance, and it's designed to teach business owners, you know, the power of passive cash flow in multifamily assets. And it's been a real pleasure to get back into a recording studio, recording content. We went down to Florida and we shot a documentary called Inflation Nation with my business partner, DC Fawcett. DC is one of the OGs of the internet marketing world. You know, been running in the same circles as Russell and the other guys. So super excited about that stuff. But it's like I can still leverage, you know, what was 10 years ago. But you know, I never really overly committed to my own brand, if you will. So therefore missed out on those platform opportunities.
Yeah, no, that makes sense how you've been able to roll it over into what you're doing today. It sounds like you're syndicating real estate. Just give us like a little brief overview so everybody knows exactly what you're doing today. And Freedom Venture Investments, which is our investment arm.
is aligned with Legacy Alliance, the education arm. So the investment arm is deploying capital in Southwest Florida. Why? Well, we got feet on the street down there. Got a business partner, 30 plus years in the market down there. Done a lot of development work himself, repositioning the multifamily. But basically what we do is we attract accredited investors. These are folks who have capital, dying in a 401k account or dying in a savings account. They're in a cash position or a stock position that they want to liquidate. And they're like, okay, well, where can I put it? Where can I put it as a somewhat risk-adjusted investment? And we show them what we have going on. I mean, I did a webinar last night for a retail center in just north of Naples, Florida. Great little investment, small raise, couple of mil. It's a 1.9 equity multiple, so double your money over 4 to 5 years. Leases in place, cash flow and assets. So being able to bring in those financial partner relationships and give them ownership in these assets in what's called an LP or a limited partner position, it's exciting, man, because you get to see people's retirement accounts grow with velocity. I'm sure you do it in the same way with the hard money, Jason. You bring in private lenders into your fund structures, you pay them X amount of percentage on their money. There's a little spread for you as the owner of the company. It's just good business. It's just good business as long as the operators have got the skills to execute. I would assume in your business, it's just as important to get the capital as it is to have the borrowers, right, to put the capital to work with.
It's all deal flow. I mean, you get to a point inside a lending operation where the capital grows itself and it snowballs quicker than the deal flow snowballs. Yeah. We have about $50 million deployed of all private capital just in the Mid-Atlantic area. So not that there's limited amount of deals around here, but it's hard to find lots of good opportunities over and over and over and over. At the same time, the capital, just like any syndication you're doing or anytime you're raising capital from another investor, they're not taking their capital out afterwards, right? It's not like, oh, I got a 10% rate of return. Thanks. I'm going to go find another investment asset now. They're in there, right? And so that capital grows. They tell friends, family, self-directed IRAs want to get put in. So it's hard to explain this to a lot of real estate operators, but you kind of get to a point where it's like, it's hard to find good opportunities to keep this capital deployed, at all times, over and over, different market cycles, different times. The last thing you want to do is invest into crappy deals, right? You'll lose. 20 years of business, you go out of business in 1 year if you invest in one bad deal. So that can't happen. So
yeah. I got a friend of mine down in the Cape Coral market. He focuses solely on single family new construction because the demand is so high down there. So he's vertically integrated, which is nice, right? So he'll take 50,000, 75,000 from the private lender. He'll put them in a first lien position, secured against the asset while they build. I think he's paying 12, something like that, whatever. He's paying a nice spiff on that money for a 1 year hold. And then they're going out and getting the rest of the bank capital to build these assets through a construction loan. Sure. So he's churning and burning. There's plenty of lots. There's plenty of demand in that market. Sure. So it's always deal specific, market specific. Is the operator able to execute on the plan? But for us, we'll do anything from a $26 million deal to a $7 million deal. We look at some of the larger ones as well. It's just a case of underwriting them conservatively, not pushing the bullshit numbers to make the deal look better than it really is. Because at the end of the day, my job is to be a steward of other people's capital, and I take that seriously, more seriously than anything else.
So are you focused more kind of like, I don't know, Cape Coral through Tampa?
Yeah. So the Route 41.
Yep.
If you look up along the west coast, Southwest Florida, we've got a piece of dirt right now just south of Tampa. That's a nice little 16-unit build that we'll execute on. We've just got a lot of different. We're hunting and picking for Delta, brother. That's really what we're doing at the end of the day. Because if you underwrite them properly, their cash flow basis, their cost basis to build, cost to reposition, the fundamentals don't change dramatically. But that's our market. We looked at some stuff in Texas. We haven't pulled the trigger on it yet, but I think we will. And also in the Carolinas. So we're not in Philly, we're not in Massachusetts, and we're not in New York.
certain color states, and then you could add Maryland to that list of places. But
there you
Dave,
go.
hey, this is I can see you didn't leave the kitchen table. This has been a super fun conversation. Where's the best place people can find you out on the internet? They want to learn more about what you guys are doing and maybe invest in one of your deals.
Yeah, if you want to come up the education gradient, I'd love to share some of that with you guys at Legacy Alliance, legacyalliance.club. You'll find a lot of good content there. We have a almost like an inner circle type group there where we bring our offerings to our inner circle group first. They come in at preferred rates. So that's a nice place to learn the business and grow capital if you're an investor. You can also get us over at freedomventure.com, freedomventure.com. That'll show you what we're doing with our fund structures, some of our existing assets. Google Dave Seymour. You can find me on LinkedIn. I like LinkedIn. That's a fun place to sift through the BS, who's real and who's not. But yeah, or old school. You can call the office, 781-922-4418. Just say that, you heard my dulcet tones on this podcast. So it's all good.
There you go. Give the man a ring. He'll talk to you. Don't be shy. David, this has been very refreshing. It's been a breath of fresh air. It's good to talk to someone who thinks the same way we do. And it's been a great conversation. So guys, we'll get all those things in the show notes. If you guys got any value out of this, you can see Dave just poured his heart out. He even took us back to the early days when he was still a fireman. Give him a share. It's the best compliment we can give the man. We don't care about the likes or the subscribes. Give the man a share, and we will catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.